Note to self. The 30th of October 2016. 9:48 For the past year I have been working on a project documenting my daily ritual of taking medication. So I would take a photo of my morning dose and evening dose. I started compiling these photos into an online archive on Instagram and titled it My Insanity. I wanted a way to remind myself of the importance of being on medication and to try not to forget to take medication. It's also been a great way to really contemplate and put in perspective why I am still alive. For the past 10 years, even more considering the time prior to being diagnosed, I've been struggling with depression and have spent way too much time contemplating and pursuing death. When I go through the depressive phases, I become so consumed by fear and self-loathing that all I want to do is resign from this life because the pain of having to live in a world so grossly unfair and cruel becomes unbearable. 2 years ago, 8th of October, I was fed up with the state of affairs. I decided to poison myself so I could die. I went to the supermarket and bought myself what I thought would be the last meal of my life. I bought chocolate cake. It turned out to be the worst tasting cake I ever ate, so I'm kinda glad that ended not being the last thing I ever ate. I ate the whole thing with the aldercarb in it, then a whole bunch of sleeping pills hoping I would fall asleep before the poison kicked in. 4 hours later I was still very awake and in pain. It was late at night, early morning probably, and my mom was asleep. I thought I should spend the last hours of my life with her, so I went to her bedroom and slipped into bed with her. I still couldn't sleep. Hours later I was still awake and in worse pain, so I woke her up and asked her to take to a hospital. I thought it would be better if I died in hospital than in her bedroom. So I survived, and even though I wish I hadn't survived, I'm glad I did because I now see how devastating my death would have been to her and my sister. I mean, I thought about this before, but when you're in your lowest moments of depression, this thought can easily be overruled by my desire to end my own suffering instead of avoiding the suffering of loved ones after death. I know a lot of people tend to want to blame the suicidal person and accuse them of being selfish, and I sympathize. But could you stop for a second and think of how much pain someone could be in for them to even think of killing themselves? I care deeply for my mom and sister, and I would hate for them to feel pain, especially as a result of my death. I think about these things. But when you're depressed, you go into a fight or flight mode and you reach a point where you feel you have fought this battle for too long and you want to flee. It's a catch-22 situation really. So do you live and save your family the pain, or do you end your own suffering? I know that this illness is always lurking, and whenever I feel overwhelmed I start thinking of fleeing. But I've been able to cope now for 2 years with ups and downs.